Hi everyone, and welcome to Fluent English Journey. If you enjoy learning English and want to improve a little every single day, make sure you subscribe for daily English lessons and tips. My name is Blake, and today I want to talk about something very important for every English learner, something most people don't realize at first. I want to explain how small mistakes can actually help you become fluent faster. It might sound strange because many people grow up thinking that mistakes are bad. We often believe that mistakes show failure, weakness, or lack of knowledge. But the truth is completely different. Mistakes are one of the most powerful tools for learning. When you make a mistake and then correct it, your brain becomes stronger at remembering the correct form. So instead of being afraid of mistakes, you should use them to move forward on your English journey. Many English learners feel nervous when they speak. Maybe you have felt the same way. Maybe you thought, if I say something wrong, people will laugh at me, or I need to speak perfectly, or people will think I'm not smart. But here's a little secret. Even native English speakers make mistakes all the time. They forget grammar, they mispronounce words, they use the wrong tense, and yet people still understand them. If they can make mistakes and still communicate, then you can too. The real goal isn't to avoid mistakes. The goal is to learn from them. Let's start with pronunciation because this is an area where small mistakes happen very often. For example, many learners confuse the words live and leave. You might accidentally say, I want to live my house, when you actually mean, I want to leave my house. It's a tiny sound difference, but it changes the meaning completely. When you notice the mistake and correct yourself, your brain remembers the correct sound. Every time you practice, your mouth and mind start working together, and your pronunciation becomes more natural. You don't need to memorize difficult rules. You improve simply by noticing, correcting, and practicing. Now, let's look at grammar. Imagine you say, he go to school yesterday instead of he went to school yesterday. At first, it might make you frustrated. But the moment you correct yourself, your brain builds a new connection. With time, you stop translating from your native language and begin thinking directly in English. This is one of the biggest steps toward fluency. When you think in English, your sentences come out naturally without long pauses or hesitation. Small mistakes also help you become a more confident speaker. Some learners speak very slowly because they are afraid of saying something wrong. They pause after every word, trying to be perfect. But English is not a test, it is a living language. People don't expect perfection, they just want clear communication. If you focus too much on avoiding mistakes, your speech can sound robotic. But when you relax, even if you say something like, I goed instead of I went, people will still understand you. And by noticing and correcting yourself, you will remember the correct form next time. So always remember, mistakes are not proof that you are failing, they are proof that you are learning. Nobody becomes fluent without making many mistakes. Every incorrect word, every wrong tense, every mixed-up pronunciation brings you one step closer to confidence. Let me share a quick story from my own experience. When I first started teaching English, I made small grammar mistakes too. I used to say, she don't like coffee instead of she doesn't like coffee. My students would correct me gently, and I felt embarrassed at first. But I didn't stop teaching or speaking. I paid attention, corrected myself, and practiced. Within a few weeks, I realized something amazing. I was saying, she doesn't automatically, without thinking. That's when I understood that every small mistake is part of the process. Mistakes help you speak more naturally. Writing is another great way to learn. Suppose you write an email and type, I have saw your message, instead of, I have seen your message. It may look like a small mistake, but when you correct it later, your brain remembers the right form more clearly. The next time you write something, you'll choose the correct structure without thinking about it. The more you write, the more confident you become, and your sentences will start flowing naturally. Now let's talk about vocabulary. Many learners avoid using new words because they're afraid of using them incorrectly. You might think, I don't know the exact meaning, so I shouldn't use this word. But that fear stops you from improving. Using a new word incorrectly at first is actually a good thing because it teaches your brain how to use it correctly later. For example, you might say, I was boring at the party, when you really mean, I was bored at the party. That's okay. When you correct the mistake, you learn the difference, and next time you will use the right word automatically. So take this with you. Don't be afraid of mistakes. Be afraid of not trying. Every small mistake helps you grow, learn, and move closer to fluency. Keep practicing, keep speaking, keep writing, and every day, you will become a better English speaker. Sometimes someone might correct you, and you may feel a little uncomfortable or awkward. But here's the good news. After that moment, you will almost never forget the correct word again. That one tiny mistake actually made your vocabulary stronger. This is why you should never be afraid to try new words. When you experiment with new vocabulary, the language grows inside you, slowly and naturally. Another powerful way to learn English is by paying attention to listening mistakes. When we listen to native speakers, misunderstandings are very normal. Maybe you think they said one thing, but they actually meant something different. Instead of feeling discouraged or wanting to avoid listening practice, you should do the opposite. Go back, listen again, repeat the sentence, and try to copy the pronunciation. Every time you do this, your ears become sharper and your listening skills improve. Listening mistakes are not failures, they are training exercises for your brain. There is also something very interesting about how human memory works. Mistakes often help us remember things better than when we get them right the first time. Imagine you say, I am agree with you, and someone corrects you by saying, it's not I am agree. It's I agree with you. That correction stays in your mind. That tiny moment of embarrassment or surprise actually helps your brain store the correct phrase for a long time. The next time you speak, your brain will automatically remember the right expression. When someone corrects your mistake, your brain takes a kind of mental picture. It feels like your mind says, okay, I understand now. I'll remember this next time. This natural emotional reaction works like a shortcut for learning. Speaking of shortcuts, small mistakes also teach you something extremely valuable: flexibility. English is full of irregular forms, strange exceptions, and unusual grammar patterns. You can't learn all of them from books. But when you make mistakes in real speaking or writing, you begin to notice patterns on your own. For example, you might say, I eat breakfast, when talking about yesterday. When someone corrects you and says, no, it's I ate breakfast, it sounds wrong when you hear it. Your brain notices the difference, and next time, it remembers the proper form. Little by little, these small corrections help you internalize how irregular verbs really work. Another powerful reason mistakes help you improve is that they make you think. When you say something wrong, your brain automatically compares what you said with what is correct. This thinking process makes your understanding deeper and stronger than just memorizing rules. For example, if you say, I am interested in learning English, and someone corrects you, you might ask yourself, why is it interested and not interesting? That short moment of curiosity helps you understand grammar, meaning, and how adjectives work. It stays in your memory longer because you discovered it yourself. Mistakes don't only improve your grammar, they also help build your confidence. Many learners feel nervous or shy in the beginning because they are afraid of sounding wrong. But when you accept mistakes as a natural part of learning, you stop worrying so much. You begin to speak more freely, more confidently, and with more energy. For example, imagine you say, yesterday, I go to the store and buy some fruit, instead of, yesterday, I went to the store and bought some fruit. The other person will still understand you completely. Maybe they correct you gently, and you simply repeat the correct version. No pressure, no shame, just learning. As you speak more, you become more relaxed. Over time, your English becomes smoother and more fluent because you are no longer afraid of being imperfect. Now let's talk about idioms and expressions, another area where small mistakes can be surprisingly helpful. Idioms are colorful phrases native speakers use all the time, like break the ice or a piece of cake. They often don't mean exactly what the words say, so it's easy to mix them up. For example, you might say, I'm feeling under the sun today, when you actually mean, I'm feeling under the weather today. Someone might laugh softly or correct you, and that's completely okay. After that moment, you'll probably never forget the correct idiom again. Every mistake like this makes the expression more memorable. And the next time you use it correctly, you'll feel proud of yourself. Your English will sound more natural and more fluent. So remember, every small mistake in grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary, or idioms is a powerful learning tool. Each one helps your brain grow stronger connections, notice real English patterns, and gain the courage to keep speaking. Instead of fearing mistakes, treat them as your teachers. The more mistakes you make and correct, the closer you get to real fluency and confidence. When you start learning from your small mistakes, you'll notice something exciting. Idioms and expressions start to come out of your mouth naturally. Each time you mix one up and fix it, your brain strengthens the memory. Soon, you won't have to pause and ask yourself, is it under the sun or under the weather? The correct version will come out automatically. That's the power of learning through mistakes. Small mistakes like these are actually signs that you are improving. They help you sound more natural and fluent over time, just like native speakers who also make tiny slips when they talk. Every little mistake you make is part of the learning process. Listening mistakes are another area where learners grow very quickly. When you listen to native speakers, you won't understand every word, and that is completely normal. For example, someone might say, I've been swamped with work this week, and you might think swamped? What does that mean? Maybe you guessed that it means tired. But later, when you check or hear it again, you learn that swamped actually means very busy. Now the word has a deeper meaning in your mind. Every listening mistake becomes a small opportunity, a chance to train your ears and understand how English sounds in real life. The more misunderstandings you have and correct, the better your listening skills will become. Mistakes also teach you how to solve problems in English. When you speak or write and can't remember the exact word, your brain starts searching for alternatives. That mental searching is powerful practice. Imagine you want to say, I'm very happy because I passed the exam, but you forget the word passed. You might say, I'm very happy because I succeed in the exam. Even if it's not perfectly correct, the meaning is still clear. You communicated successfully. This shows that your brain is learning to express ideas even when you don't have the exact vocabulary. Over time, this ability to find other words makes your communication smoother and stronger. You become less afraid of getting stuck because you learn to keep talking no matter what. Another important lesson from making mistakes is persistence. Learning English is not a straight, easy journey. It has twists, challenges, and lots of repetition. Sometimes you will make the same mistake again and again. For example, many learners struggle with the difference between say and tell. You might keep saying, she said me a secret, instead of, she told me a secret. It can feel frustrating to correct the same mistake many times, but that repetition is exactly how your brain learns. Every time you notice the mistake and fix it, you strengthen the correct form. One day, you'll automatically say, she told me a secret, without thinking. That's persistence turning into mastery. Now let's talk about fluency in real conversations. Many learners pause too much because they try too hard to. Oh, be perfect. You may hear yourself say, I think, I am agreeing, no. I am agreeing, and then you stop. These long pauses make speaking stressful. But the truth is, fluency doesn't mean speaking without mistakes. It means speaking without fear. When you accept that mistakes are normal, your speech becomes smoother and more relaxed. Instead of worrying about every word, you start focusing on expressing your ideas. The more you speak, the more natural your flow becomes. So remember this. Every listening error, grammar mix-up, or vocabulary slip is not a failure, it is part of your training. Mistakes help you think faster, react confidently, and understand English on a deeper level. The more you make, the more flexible and fluent you become. Mistakes are not roadblocks. They are stepping stones on your journey toward true English mastery. When you finally accept that small mistakes are okay, speaking becomes easier and faster. You don't stop to analyze every sentence. You just talk. For example, you might say, "I think I agree with you, but I'm not completely sure yet." The grammar isn't perfect, but the conversation continues smoothly. You are practicing thinking in English in real time, one of the most important skills for fluency. Each time you speak like this, your brain learns to respond quickly without translating from your native language. Mistakes also help you internalize English patterns. English has many irregular verbs, phrasal verbs, and strange exceptions. You cannot memorize all of them perfectly, and that's okay. Let's say you write or say, "I bought a new phone yesterday," instead of, "I bought a new phone yesterday." This kind of mistake is completely normal. Each time you notice it and correct it, your brain remembers the correct form more strongly. Over time, your use of irregular verbs becomes automatic. You won't have to think about rules. Your brain simply knows what sounds right. Writing is another place where mistakes help you improve. Writing slowly is good, but making mistakes while writing is even better for learning. For example, you might write, "She don't like pizza," instead of, "She doesn't like pizza." Later, when you review and correct it, the correct form stays in your memory much longer than if you had simply memorized a grammar rule. Writing mistakes create strong mental connections that make both your writing and speaking more accurate over time. Mistakes are a normal and important part of learning English. This is especially true for small pronunciation mistakes. English has many sounds that may not exist in your native language, so it makes sense that you might say them incorrectly at first. For example, the words ship and sheep sound very similar, but mean completely different things. If you accidentally say, "I have a big sheep," instead of, "I have a big ship," the listener will usually understand what you meant from the situation. But noticing this mistake helps you practice the difference. When you repeat these sounds again and again, they slowly become easier, and you begin to speak more clearly and with more confidence. Listening mistakes also help you learn. When you misunderstand a word or phrase, it is not a failure, it is actually a learning moment. Imagine someone says, "I was caught in traffic," and you think they were physically captured. That guess is natural when you are still learning. Later, when you discover that it actually means "I was delayed because of heavy traffic," your brain forms a stronger connection between the phrase and the correct meaning. Every misunderstanding followed by a correction trains your ears to hear English more accurately. Even small mistakes in speaking, writing, listening, and pronunciation help build your fluency. These mistakes push your brain to think harder, remember better, and correct itself over time. Instead of being afraid of mistakes, it is better to see them as steps that lead you forward. Every error you notice and fix strengthens your English skills and helps you understand the language's natural patterns. This slow process of noticing, correcting, and practicing helps you move from careful, hesitant English to confident and natural communication. Mistakes are not signs of failure. They are tools that guide your learning. They challenge what you know, help your brain grow, and show that you are improving. The more mistakes you make and learn from, the faster you will speak English smoothly and confidently. Real conversations are also very helpful. Many learners practice English only in classrooms or with exercises, but real-life speaking helps you grow much faster. For example, if you say, I am boring today instead of I am bored today, a friend can correct you immediately. This type of correction is more memorable because it happens in a real situation with real emotion. Your brain remembers it much better than a textbook explanation. Mistakes also give you the chance to experiment with English. If you say, I wish I can go to Paris next year, instead of the correct form, I wish I could go to Paris next year, you are trying new grammar structures. Every attempt, even if imperfect, teaches your brain how English works. Over time, you become more confident and you start speaking more freely without worrying so much about being perfect. Mistakes also help you understand your own weaknesses. When you notice that you keep making the same type of mistake, you can easily identify which area needs more attention. For example, if you repeatedly confuse affect and effect, you know this is something you need to practice more. This self-awareness, combined with consistent practice, helps you grow into a stronger, more confident English speaker. Mistakes are one of the most powerful tools for learning English. They help you improve more quickly and more efficiently than perfect practice. When you make a mistake, you learn patience. English is a complex language with many rules, exceptions, and special expressions. It is impossible for anyone to learn everything perfectly at once. For example, you might write, I look forward to meet you, when the correct form is I look forward to meeting you. At first, this can feel annoying or disappointing, but each correction is actually a small step forward. With time, your patience and continuous practice slowly build your fluency and confidence. Mistakes also encourage you to ask questions. When you say something incorrect, you often want to understand why it is wrong. You might ask, why is it meeting and not meet? Asking questions helps you understand grammar rules, patterns, and exceptions more deeply than just memorizing them. Your mistakes become guides, showing you exactly where you need more practice. Small mistakes are not just a part of learning, they are necessary tools. They help you think in English, make your speech more natural, and train your brain to notice grammar patterns and pronunciation differences. Your mistakes allow you to experiment, self-correct, and slowly grow more confident. Every mistake is a step forward. The more mistakes you make, the more fluent, clear, and natural your English becomes. Mistakes are not failures. They are opportunities. They help you improve faster, communicate more clearly, and develop the skills you need to speak English confidently in real-life situations. Mistakes often lead to valuable learning moments. For example, if you say, I am exciting about the trip, instead of I am excited about the trip, someone might explain the difference. This correction is extremely helpful because you learn the correct form and also understand why it is correct. Over time, these small explanations help you build a strong understanding of English grammar and how different words work. Mistakes also teach you how to improvise. In real conversations, you do not always have time to think about perfect grammar. You may need to speak quickly. For example, you might want to say, I have already eaten lunch, but instead say, I already eat lunch. Even though the grammar is not perfect, the listener still understands what you mean. Each time this happens, you become better at communicating even when your grammar is not 100% correct. This is an important skill for true fluency. Phrasal verbs are another area where mistakes help you learn. English has many phrasal verbs, and many of them have more than one meaning. For example, take off can mean to remove clothing or for an airplane to leave the ground. Saying, I take off my shirt, is correct. But if you say, the airplane take off, someone may correct you. Each mistake helps you remember phrasal verbs better for future conversations. Mistakes also make new vocabulary easier to remember. Imagine you say, the food was astonishing good, instead of astonishingly good. When someone corrects you, the correction becomes a stronger memory than if you had said the sentence perfectly the first time. Mistakes create strong learning moments because your brain pays more attention when it needs to fix something. Speaking mistakes are especially helpful for learning natural sentence patterns. If you say, I went to the store yesterday, instead of I went to the store yesterday, you are practicing past tense structures. Every time you notice and correct this type of mistake, your brain learns the correct grammar more deeply. Over time, you naturally begin to speak with the correct forms without thinking. Making mistakes in English actually helps you learn faster. Each time you make an error, your brain slowly learns how to use the correct forms without thinking about grammar rules. At first, it might feel difficult to form a correct sentence, but with enough practice and repetition, your brain starts using the right structures automatically. This is one of the biggest benefits of making small mistakes. They help your English become natural and automatic. Pronunciation mistakes are also helpful. English has many words that sound very similar, so it is normal to mix them up. If you say, I have a big sheep, instead of I have a big ship, the listener can usually understand what you mean from the situation. But when someone corrects you, your brain begins to learn the small differences in sound. After enough corrections and practice, these sounds become easier and your pronunciation becomes clearer and more confident. Mistakes in English are not just errors, they are learning opportunities. They help you think, experiment, discover patterns, and understand how the language works. They also train your brain to respond quickly in conversations, improve your vocabulary memory, and help you use grammar naturally. Every time you make a mistake and fix it, you take a small but important step towards speaking English fluently, confidently, and naturally. Accepting mistakes is one of the fastest ways to become a strong English speaker. Mistakes also teach you cultural awareness. Sometimes errors are not about grammar, they're about context or style. For example, I am very full after eating is fine with friends, but it may sound too informal in a business email. Making small mistakes like this helps you understand which expressions are appropriate in different situations. This is an important skill for sounding natural in English. Speaking and listening mistakes often happen together. You might hear someone say, I am starving, meaning they are very hungry. If you reply, you are deaf, instead of you are very hungry, the listener may correct you. These small corrections help you understand idioms, common expressions, and real-life English. Over time, they make both your listening and speaking skills stronger. Mistakes in writing are just as useful. For example, if you write, I hope you is doing well, instead of I hope you are doing well, and later correct it, your brain remembers the correct structure for the next time. Repeating this process makes your writing more accurate and natural without needing to think too much about grammar rules. Making mistakes also builds resilience. Learning English can be challenging, and you may feel discouraged at times. When you accept mistakes as part of the process, you become mentally stronger. For example, if you repeatedly say, I am boring, instead of I am bored, and people correct you kindly, you learn to keep going instead of giving up. This persistence is a key quality for anyone who wants to become fluent. Mistakes also encourage creativity. When you do not know a specific word, you start using other words or expressions to explain your idea. For example, if you forget the word happy, you might say, I feel very good today. Even if it is not perfect, your brain is practicing how to think in English and communicate clearly. With time, this creativity becomes automatic and you can express yourself more confidently. Making pronunciation mistakes teaches you the rhythm and music of English. If you mispronounce comfortable as comfort and someone corrects you, you begin to practice the correct stress and intonation. English is not only about vocabulary, it is also about how words sound and how sentences rise and fall. Mistakes help you learn this natural flow, making your speech smoother and more native-like. Mistakes also strengthen your listening. When someone corrects your grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation, your brain pays special attention to the correct sound or structure. Each correction becomes a powerful memory. Over time, you start noticing patterns and rules automatically. Mistakes are not failures. They are stepping stones. Every error you make and every correction you learn from moves you closer to fluency, confidence, and natural communication. Embracing mistakes with patience and persistence is one of the fastest and most effective ways to master English. Making mistakes in English is one of the most helpful parts of learning the language. When you say something like, I am agree with you, and someone corrects you to, I agree with you, you begin to notice the difference in sentence structure and pronunciation. Over time, these small corrections train your ears. You start hearing tiny differences in English more clearly, and listening becomes easier and more natural. Storytelling is another great example of how mistakes help you learn. If you tell a story and say, last week, I go to the cinema, people still understand you. When someone corrects you to last week, I went to the cinema, your brain remembers the correct tense better than if you had simply memorized a rule. Telling stories in English is fun, practical, and a powerful way to learn from mistakes while improving your speaking skills. Mistakes also make your English sound more natural. Many learners try to speak perfectly to avoid errors, but this often makes speech sound forced or unnatural. When you allow yourself to speak freely, even with mistakes, your English becomes more relaxed and authentic. Instead of saying something stiff like, I have been to the market yesterday and purchased groceries, you might say, I went to the market yesterday and bought groceries. This is simpler, more natural, and easier to say. Through small mistakes, you learn how people actually speak English in daily life. Every small error in grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation helps build your confidence. Each correction teaches your brain something new. Over time, these small learning moments help you recognize patterns, choose better words, and express ideas more clearly. What once felt confusing becomes simple and automatic. Mistakes also encourage experimentation. When you're unsure about a word or sentence, you try different ways to express yourself. Even if the sentence isn't perfect, your brain practices thinking in English. This helps you develop flexibility and problem-solving skills. The more you experiment, the more confident and fluent you become. Learning becomes easier and more enjoyable. It's important to remember that mistakes are not failures. They are essential steps on your road to fluency. They help you speak more naturally, listen more carefully, write more accurately, and think in English instead of translating. They also teach you patience, resilience, and confidence. Every small mistake is a building block that brings you closer to becoming a fluent and natural speaker. For example, if you say, he don't like coffee, and later someone tells you the correct form is, he doesn't like coffee, your brain stores that correction. Next time, you automatically choose the right form without thinking too hard. This is how fluency develops slowly, through repetition and correction. Mistakes also help you understand different types of English. In a formal email, you might write, I am needing your response, instead of, I need your response. When someone corrects you, you learn how formal and informal English work. This helps you communicate more clearly in conversations, workplace situations, and professional writing. Grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and listening mistakes all play a role in fluency. Each one strengthens your memory, boosts your confidence, and teaches you how English really works. For example, if you write, the movie was bored, instead of, the movie was boring, your brain learns to notice the difference between describing a feeling and describing a thing. This helps you think in English rather than translating from your native language. Even tiny mistakes help. If you say, I went to the store yesterday, instead of, I went to the store yesterday, your brain begins to understand when to use a, an, and the. These small corrections, repeated over time, help you use articles naturally without thinking. Mistakes also teach you self-correction. Sometimes you catch your own errors while speaking. For example, you might say, I am understand, and immediately correct yourself to I understand. This ability to notice and fix mistakes in real time is extremely valuable. It means your brain is learning quickly and adjusting automatically. The more you speak, listen, write, and make mistakes, the faster your English improves. Mistakes guide you, teach you, and strengthen your skills. By embracing them, you move from careful, slow English to fluent, confident, and natural communication. Every mistake is a step forward on your journey toward mastering the language. Making mistakes in English is completely normal, and it is one of the best ways to improve. Every time you make an error, your brain works harder to understand why it happened and how to fix it. This process helps you learn English more deeply and remember it more easily. For example, imagine you say, I am agree with you, and someone corrects you by saying, I agree with you. You notice the difference in the sentence structure and the sound of the words. Later, when you speak again, your brain remembers the correct version. These small corrections help you hear English more clearly and understand how sentences should be formed. Over time, these small improvements make listening and speaking easier. Mistakes are also very helpful when telling stories. If you say, last week, I go to the cinema, instead of last week, I went to the cinema, most listeners will still understand your meaning. When they correct you, you remember the correct tense for next time. Storytelling becomes more enjoyable because mistakes help you grow and learn naturally. Trying to speak perfectly all the time can make your English sound stiff or unnatural. But when you allow yourself to make mistakes, your speaking becomes more relaxed and natural. For example, instead of saying a long and complicated sentence like, I've been to the market yesterday and purchased groceries, you can simply say, I went to the market yesterday and bought groceries. This is easier, clearer, and more natural. Mistakes teach you how real English sounds in everyday life. Even small errors in grammar, word choice, or pronunciation are valuable. Every mistake gives your brain practice. Every correction helps you understand English patterns. Slowly, speaking becomes automatic. What once felt difficult becomes easy. Mistakes also help you experiment with language. If you forget a word, your brain finds another way to express your idea. For example, if you forget the word difficult, you might say, it was not easy to finish the task. This still communicates your meaning. This type of flexibility makes you more confident and helps you think in English instead of translating from your native language. Pronunciation mistakes are also important. If you say, I like to sheet music, instead of I like to read sheet music, you might confuse the listener. When someone corrects you, your brain learns the correct sound. Over time, you improve your pronunciation, rhythm, and stress, and you begin to sound more natural. Mistakes help you understand which English expressions are suitable for different situations. For example, you might say, can you borrow me your pen instead of, can you lend me your pen? This mistake shows that some verbs work differently depending on the context. By noticing these differences, you learn how to use English correctly in casual conversations, emails, and professional settings. Listening mistakes also help you grow. If someone says, I'm looking forward to meeting you, but you hear, I'm looking forward to eat you, you notice something is wrong. When you listen again, your brain learns to focus on the correct sounds. Each listening mistake helps you improve your understanding of spoken English. Mistakes also build confidence and patience. Learning a language can be challenging, and errors are a natural part of the journey. When you accept mistakes instead of fearing them, you become more confident and open to learning. Even small errors help you improve your grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and sentence structure. Every mistake is a step toward fluency. In summary, mistakes are not failures. They are powerful tools for learning English. They help you think in English, understand patterns, correct yourself, speak more naturally, communicate confidently. Use English in different situations. Improve vocabulary, pronunciation, and listening. Every error you make and correct brings you closer to speaking English clearly, creatively, and confidently. Mistakes guide you, teach you, and help you become better every single day. Sometimes you may forget the exact English word you want to use. When this happens, you naturally look for another way to explain your idea. For example, instead of saying, "I was thrilled because the event was excellent," you might say, "I was feeling very happy and excited because the event was very good." This shows that your brain is learning to think flexibly in English. With time, this skill makes you more fluent, more confident, and more comfortable expressing your thoughts in different ways. Mistakes also help you speak more naturally with native speakers. Most native speakers expect learners to make mistakes, and they usually correct you kindly. For example, if you say, "She don't want to go to the party," someone may politely correct you by saying, "She doesn't want to go to the party." These small corrections are very powerful because they are real, simple, and easy to remember. They help you learn English naturally during normal conversations. Mistakes also build resilience. English has many irregular verbs, complicated rules, and exceptions. For example, you might repeatedly say, "I have went to the store," instead of "I have gone to the store." At first, these mistakes feel frustrating. However, every correction helps you grow stronger mentally. You become more determined and motivated to improve. With persistence, these repeated mistakes slowly lead you toward long-term fluency. Small mistakes also train your brain to think in English instead of translating from your native language. For example, you might think, "In my language we say this, so I should say the same in English." Because of this, you might say, "I have 25 years," instead of "I am 25 years old." Each correction helps you understand natural English sentence patterns. With time, your brain stops translating and begins forming sentences directly in English. Another important benefit of mistakes is that they help you understand meaning from context. For example, if someone says, "The lecture was quite challenging," and you don't know the word challenging, you might guess it means difficult. When you check the meaning later and confirm you were close, your brain forms a strong connection. This skill helps you understand English faster in movies, conversations, books, and podcasts. Mistakes also encourage creativity. When you do not know the perfect word, you find a simpler expression. If you forget the word astonished, you might say, "I was very surprised." Your message is still correct. Over time, this creativity helps you communicate smoothly, even when your vocabulary is limited. Mistakes can also build confidence. When you accept that errors are a natural part of learning, you become less afraid to speak. For example, you may want to say, "I am nervous about speaking in public," but you accidentally say, "I am nervously about speaking in public." Even though it is slightly wrong, the listener understands you, and you still get practice. With more practice, your confidence grows and speaking becomes easier. Small mistakes also help you learn correct English word order. Many languages have different sentence patterns from English. You may say, "I yesterday went to the park," instead of "I went to the park yesterday." Each correction helps your brain learn the natural flow of English sentences. With time, correct word order becomes automatic. Mistakes with phrasal verbs are also useful. For example, you might say, "Turn down the light," instead of "turn off the light." When someone corrects you, you understand which phrasal verbs fit which situations. Learning phrasal verbs through mistakes is more effective than memorizing long lists because you learn them in real situations. Mistakes also help you understand subtle differences in meaning. Some words are easy to confuse, like borrow and lend. If you say, "Can you borrow me your book?" instead of "Can you lend me your book?" the correction teaches you not only the right word, but also the right context. This improves your accuracy and helps you sound more natural. Another major benefit of mistakes is that they help you speak fluently under pressure. When talking to native speakers, you don't have time to think about every rule. You may make small errors while telling a story or explaining something quickly. This is normal. Each real-life mistake helps your brain learn to communicate smoothly without overthinking. Mistakes also increase your flexibility in communication. When you forget a word, your brain quickly finds another way to explain your idea. For example, instead of saying, "I was exhausted after work," you might say, "I was very tired after work." This shows your brain is adapting, becoming creative, and learning to work with the vocabulary you already know. Over time, these experiences build strong, natural English skills. Mistakes help you grow, think more independently in English, and communicate more clearly. They also teach you patience, confidence, and resilience. Making mistakes in English is extremely helpful because it teaches you to communicate clearly, even when you do not know every word. When you make errors, your English becomes more natural, relaxed, and authentic. Some learners try so hard to avoid mistakes that their speech becomes stiff or overly formal. But when you allow yourself to make mistakes and learn from them, your English becomes smoother, more comfortable, and easier for others to understand. You begin to learn the natural rhythm of English, the sentence patterns people actually use, and the vocabulary you need in real situations. Mistakes are not failures. They are steps that lead you toward fluency, confidence, and natural communication. Mistakes also help you speak even if your grammar is not perfect. For example, if you say, "Yesterday, I go to the shop and buy some milk," instead of "Yesterday, I went to the shop and bought some milk," the listener still understands your meaning clearly. These small errors help you practice speaking naturally, without fear, and without stopping too much to think about every rule. This makes talking feel easier and builds your fluency. Mistakes help you improve self-correction as well. Sometimes, you may say something like, "He don't like ice cream," and then immediately realize the mistake and correct yourself. "He doesn't like ice cream." This habit of noticing and fixing your own errors trains your brain to recognize English patterns. Over time, this helps you speak more accurately and fluently without needing to think too hard. Mistakes are helpful in reading and writing too. When you read something and misunderstand a word, your brain learns through correction. For example, if you read, "The movie was breathtaking," and you think it means scary, you are misunderstanding the context. When you look it up and learn it means amazing or wonderful, your vocabulary becomes stronger. Every time you correct a misunderstanding, your reading skills improve naturally and effectively. Writing mistakes are also powerful learning tools. For instance, if you write, "I am interested in learning English," instead of "I am interested in learning English," noticing the mistake helps you remember the correct form much better than simply memorizing grammar rules from a book. This shows how real practice and real mistakes help you learn faster than studying rules alone. Small mistakes also help you understand and use phrasal verbs correctly. You might say, "I look after my cat," which is correct, but later you accidentally say, "I look for my cat," when you mean the same thing. By recognizing the mistake, your brain learns the difference between look after and look for. With time, you begin to use phrasal verbs naturally and confidently, without needing to think about them too much. Mistakes also improve your creativity in English. Sometimes, you do not know the exact word, so you explain your idea in a different way. For example, if you want to say, "I am exhausted," but you forget the word exhausted, you might say, "I am very tired." This shows your brain is thinking flexibly. This skill helps you express your ideas clearly even when your vocabulary is limited, and it makes you a more confident and fluent speaker. Making mistakes also strengthens your natural communication skills. Whether you are speaking, reading, or writing, every error helps you understand English better. Mistakes teach you how to use the language in real situations, how to form sentences, understand context, choose the right words, and express your meaning correctly. Over time, you start noticing patterns, correcting yourself automatically, and using English without translating from your native language. Mistakes also help you think in English. For example, if you forget the word tired and want to say, I feel very tired after a long day, you might say, I feel very low energy after a long day. Even though it is not perfect, it is still correct and understandable. These small improvisations train your brain to think directly in English, which improves your fluency and confidence. Mistakes also teach you everyday English and natural expressions. For example, you might say, I am very happy, but a native speaker might say, I am thrilled. If you try to use the word thrilled and make a mistake, someone can correct you, and you learn the natural way to express strong feelings. These small corrections in casual conversations help you sound more fluent and less like a textbook. Grammar mistakes also help your memory. For example, you might say, I have saw that movie, instead of I have seen that movie. Every correction strengthens your brain and helps you remember the correct form in the future. After many small mistakes and corrections, using the right forms becomes automatic. Pronunciation mistakes are also valuable. If you say, I'm going to the store tomorrow, but your stress or rhythm is unnatural, people might still understand you. When you notice the mistake and practice the natural rhythm, your pronunciation becomes clearer and more fluent. Mistakes in pronunciation help you improve your intonation, stress, and clarity. Reading mistakes also help you understand idioms and expressions better. For example, if you read, she was over the moon about her promotion, and think it means she was angry, you will naturally check the meaning and discover that it means she was very happy. Over time, correcting misunderstandings helps you recognize idioms and understand English more easily. Mistakes also build problem-solving skills during conversation. If you forget the exact word, your brain finds another way to express it. For example, if you want to say, I was thrilled because the event was excellent, but forget thrilled, you might say, I was very happy because the event was very good. This skill helps you stay fluent even when you cannot find the perfect vocabulary. Making mistakes in English is a normal, natural, and very helpful part of learning the language. Every mistake you make teaches your brain something new. Even if your grammar is not perfect or you do not know every word, people can still understand you most of the time. This means mistakes do not stop communication, they actually help you communicate better. For example, if you say, yesterday, I go to the shop and buy some milk, instead of, yesterday, I went to the shop and bought some milk, the listener still understands what you mean. The grammar is not perfect, but the message is clear. These small errors help you practice speaking in real situations, and this experience is more powerful than just memorizing rules. Mistakes also help you correct yourself. If you say, he don't like ice cream, you might notice it immediately and change it to, he doesn't like ice cream. This self-correction trains your brain to recognize patterns automatically. Over time, your speaking becomes smoother and more natural. Mistakes are helpful when reading too. Sometimes you might misunderstand a word or phrase. For example, you may read, the movie was breathtaking, and think it means scary. When you look up the actual meaning, amazing or wonderful, you remember it much better. Each correction improves your vocabulary and reading skills. Writing mistakes are also important. If you write, I am interested in learning English, instead of I am interested in learning English, noticing and fixing this mistake helps you remember the correct form. It becomes part of your natural English instead of something you memorize from a rule book. Mistakes also help you learn phrasal verbs. You might say, I look after my cat, correctly, but later say, I look for my cat, in the wrong situation. When you realize the difference, your brain stores the correct meaning more deeply. Sometimes mistakes even improve your creativity. When you forget a word, your brain finds another way to express the idea. For example, if you forget the word exhausted, You might say, I am very tired. This shows flexible thinking. Being able to explain ideas in different ways is an important part of fluency. Pronunciation mistakes also help you improve. Even if you stress a sentence incorrectly, like, I'm going to the store tomorrow, people usually still understand you. When you hear how a native speaker says it and try again, your rhythm and intonation get better. These small improvements slowly make your English sound more natural. Mistakes are useful in conversations too. For example, you might confuse listen and hear and say, I hear carefully to the teacher instead of, I listen carefully to the teacher. When someone corrects you, you understand the difference more clearly. These real-life corrections are more powerful than memorizing a grammar chart. Interacting with people also becomes easier when you make mistakes. Native speakers expect learners to make errors, and most of them correct you politely. If you say, she don't want to go to the party, someone may say, she doesn't want to go to the party. This kind of correction is simple, helpful, and easy to remember. Mistakes build confidence and resilience. For example, you might often say, I have went, instead of I have gone. It can feel frustrating, but each correction helps you improve. Learning a language takes time, and mistakes are signs that you are practicing and improving. Mistakes also help you stop translating from your native language and start thinking in English. You may say, I have 25 years, because that is what people say in your language. But after correcting it to, I am 25 years old, your brain slowly learns the English pattern. Over time, you start forming sentences directly in English without translation. Mistakes also help you learn idioms and expressions. If someone says, I'm under the weather, and you think it means angry instead of sick, you learn something new when they explain it. Experiences like this improve your listening skills and help you understand natural English. Writing mistakes also strengthen grammar. If you write, she don't like chocolate, and later fix it to, she doesn't like chocolate, your brain learns the rule naturally. With time, you will write more accurately without thinking too much. Sometimes you forget a word while speaking. Instead of stopping, you find another word. If you forget the word appointment, you might say, I have a meeting with the doctor. This shows your brain is learning to communicate smoothly even when vocabulary is limited. Finally, mistakes help you understand the difference between formal and informal English. For example, you might say, I am needing your help, in a formal situation. When someone corrects you to, I need your help, you learn how to adjust your language depending on the situation. In summary, mistakes teach you grammar naturally. Mistakes help you think in English. Mistakes improve listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Mistakes build confidence and resilience. Mistakes make your English sound natural, not robotic. Mistakes are not failures, they are your teachers. Each one brings you closer to fluency, confidence, and natural communication. Mistakes also help you improve your sentence structure and word choices. For example, if you say, I am boring today, someone may tell you, you should say, I am bored today. When this happens, your brain remembers both the correct word and how to use it. This combination of active listening and making mistakes helps you become more fluent. Mistakes also teach you the cultural use of English. Some mistakes are not only about grammar, they are about context. For instance, saying, I am very full after a meal is fine in a casual conversation with friends. But in a formal email or work message, it may sound strange. By making mistakes, you learn how English is used in different situations, which helps you speak both naturally and appropriately. Mistakes teach you how to paraphrase or explain something in a different way. If you do not know the exact word, you find another way to express your idea. For example, instead of saying, I am exhausted, you might say, I am very tired after a long day. This skill helps you communicate effectively even when your vocabulary is limited. It makes your English more flexible, creative, and fluent. Small mistakes in vocabulary also strengthen your understanding. For example, if you say, I was boring at the party, instead of, I was bored at the party, the correction helps you learn the correct meaning. Each time you correct a vocabulary mistake, whether you notice it yourself or someone else points it out, your English becomes more accurate and natural. Mistakes also help you express emotions correctly. Over time, you learn how to choose the right adjectives to describe how you feel, which makes your English sound more natural and confident. Mistakes help you speak more fluently under real pressure. When you talk to native speakers, you cannot always stop to think about every grammar rule. For example, you might say, yesterday I go to the park and buy some fruit, instead of, yesterday I went to the park and bought some fruit. The listener still understands your message. As you speak more often, your brain becomes quicker and more comfortable with English. These small errors also teach you how to connect ideas logically. When you correct mistakes in sentence flow, you learn how English sentences should sound, which helps you move toward advanced fluency. Pronunciation mistakes are useful too. If you mispronounce a word like comfortable, your mistake gives you a chance to hear the correct version and practice it. English has a natural rhythm and intonation, and every mistake helps you fine-tune your speaking patterns. Grammar mistakes also teach you important details. For example, confusing much and many by saying, I have much friends instead of I have many friends helps you remember which one to use in the future. After several corrections, correct grammar begins to feel automatic. Mistakes help build confidence in social situations. Sometimes learners avoid speaking because they are afraid of being wrong. But if you accept small mistakes, you can still say, I think this movie is very interesting, even if you first said something like, I think this movie is very exciting. Every attempt, even imperfect, increases your confidence. Mistakes also improve your ability to summarize and explain ideas. When you forget a word, your brain finds a different way to describe it. If you forget the word library, you might say, the place where you can borrow books. This kind of flexible speaking strengthens your fluency. Mistakes teach you to express yourself in a variety of ways. If you want to say, I am very nervous about the meeting, but accidentally say, I am very nervously about the meeting, the listener still understands you. Correcting this teaches your brain the right form and helps you express yourself clearly in different situations. Mistakes help you learn collocations, words that naturally go together. If you say, I did a mistake, instead of, I made a mistake, you learn the correct combination. Collocations make your English sound natural and fluent, just like a native speaker. Mistakes also improve listening comprehension. For example, if someone says, I am thrilled with the results, and you hear, I am filled with the results, you may misunderstand. When you check the meaning or ask again, you improve your ability to understand idioms and natural English expressions. Mistakes even help you think more critically about grammar. If you write, I am interested in learning languages, and then correct it to, I am interested in learning languages, you begin to understand why the correction is needed. This deepens your understanding of grammar and sentence structure. Mistakes allow you to explore informal and conversational English too. For example, you might say, I am very happy today, but a native speaker might say, I am over the moon today. If you use such expressions incorrectly and someone corrects you, you learn more natural ways to speak. Learning through small errors makes your English sound authentic, not robotic or textbook-like. Finally, mistakes strengthen your ability to paraphrase. If you cannot remember the word delighted, you might say, I am very happy about the news. This shows your brain is learning to communicate the idea even without the exact word. Over time, this skill greatly improves your fluency and flexibility. Making small mistakes in pronunciation is actually very helpful for improving your English. When you mispronounce a word like comfortable by saying comfortably instead of the natural comfortable, you begin to notice how English rhythm and stress really work. English has a musical flow, and every mistake you make helps you adjust your stress, rhythm, and intonation. Over time, your speech becomes smoother and more natural. Mistakes also help you learn how to ask questions correctly. For example, if you say, "Do you can help me with this problem?" instead of the correct, "Can you help me with this problem?" someone may correct you. That correction teaches you the right structure. Asking questions correctly is important because it allows you to join conversations easily, get clear information, and communicate confidently. Errors also teach you how to handle misunderstandings politely. If you say, "I misunderstood what you said about the project," someone may explain it again. Each time you successfully fix a misunderstanding, you gain more confidence in real-life communication. Mistakes help you explain things clearly even when you forget a word. For example, if you forget the word pen, you might say the thing you used to write on paper. This shows your brain how to describe ideas in different ways. This is an important skill for advanced fluency because it helps you keep speaking without stopping. Irregular verb mistakes also help you learn patterns. You might say, "I have went to the store," instead of "I have gone to the store." Every correction strengthens the correct form in your memory. Irregular verbs appear very often in English, so mastering them is essential for sounding natural. Making mistakes also helps you practice speaking under pressure. In real conversations, you cannot always stop to think. If you say, "Yesterday, I go to the cinema and watch a movie," instead of "Yesterday, I went to the cinema and watched a movie," the listener still understands. These moments help you stay confident and fluent even when you make errors. Mistakes also teach you subtle differences between similar words. For example, many learners confuse borrow and lend. You might ask, "Can you borrow me your book?" instead of "Can you lend me your book?" When someone corrects you, you learn the exact meaning and proper usage. These small differences are important for advanced fluency. Mistakes help you practice self-correction too. If you say, "He don't like coffee," and then notice it, you can correct yourself, "He doesn't like coffee." This habit makes your speech more accurate without needing someone else to correct you. Mistakes even make you more curious about English. For example, if you misread a sentence like, "The situation was escalating rapidly," you might check the meaning. This improves your vocabulary, comprehension, and confidence. Idioms also become easier through mistakes. If you say, "I am feeling under the sun," instead of "I am feeling under the weather," the correction helps you remember the real idiom. Idioms are important for sounding natural, and learning them through mistakes makes them easier to remember. Articles like a and the also improve through mistakes. If you say, "I went to the store yesterday," someone might correct you with, "I went to the store yesterday." Over time, you learn to use articles automatically. Mistakes also teach you verb tenses. If you say, "I am going to the market yesterday," the correction, "I went to the market yesterday," helps you understand past, present, and future more clearly. Tense usage slowly becomes automatic. Even vocabulary gets stronger when you make small mistakes. If you say, "The food was astonishing good," someone may tell you the correct form, astonishingly good. This helps you use advanced vocabulary correctly in the future. Listening also improves through mistakes. If someone says, "I am swamped with work," and you respond with, "You are drowned in work," the correction helps you understand idioms better and respond naturally next time. Mistakes even help you explain ideas when you forget words. If you can't remember a library, you might say, "The place where you borrow books." This kind of explanation skill is extremely important for fluency. Finally, mistakes help you understand English sentence order. If you say, "I yesterday went to the park," the correction, "I went to the park yesterday," helps you learn the natural pattern. Each correction builds stronger sentence structure in your mind.